Welcome to another edition of 805 Sports Talk. Now, you know we love covering local high school athletes, but we also enjoy following them after they graduate from high school. And we have a ton of area athletes who are now producing at the college stage, and one of those is Ainuu Taua, one of the more prominent athletes playing at UCLA and a prestigious football program. And Lorenzo, you caught up with him Tuesday night. He's had an interesting career at UCLA. Surprisingly played a little bit of fullback, but we saw some of him on the offensive side in high school, but he projected more of a defensive guy at UCLA. Can you kind of give us an update on what are things looking like for Ainuu and kind of how he's doing at another year at UCLA?
Well, he's back with the guy who recruited him to Westwood, Angus McClure. And one of the things that he told me is that he loves how McClure has a reputation of sending guys to the NFL. I mean, it was this past April he produced to Carson Mckinlay, a first-round pick, and that does pique Taua's interest. And not only that, he says something that resonated with me. He's not specifically just going to one position on the defensive line. He told me that he's going to move up and down the line. So you're going to see him as a weak side end, strong side defensive end, maybe the three technique, the quick defensive tackle, and then maybe over the top of the right guard. So he's going to be like one of those Swiss Army knife types for the UCLA defensive line. And considering his versatility and also the fact that he's not a novice when it comes to the defensive line. So it sounds like that he's back in his natural home, his natural habitat.
What do you think he's going to do this year? What do you expect out of him? Do you think he's going to, be a solid kind of starter guy, going to be a contributor role player? Do you think he's going to maybe pile up some sacks? What do you expect out of Ainuu Taua this year?
I feel like that if UCLA moves him inside, they'll definitely take advantage of his quickness off the ball. And I mean, considering that he's 5'11", 275, I mean, he has the bulk of a nose tackle, but I think considering his speed, off the ball, he could be a good three technique. I don't know about him being a defensive end per se, because a lot of defensive ends, I'm sure they're 6'3", 6'4". I mean, Carson Mckinlay played at 6'4", 6'5". So, I'm a little skeptic about him being on the outside. I feel like that, considering his bulk, that he's more suited for the inside game. But we'll see what Jim Mora and the new defensive coordinator Tom Bradley has in store for him.
Yeah, and UCLA is obviously an interesting program. They're in the news with Josh Rosen and hearing talk of Jim Mora needing to produce more wins over there in Westwood. How does Ainuu kind of respond to that side of things, being in close to LA and kind of off the football field? Does he get mixed up in all that, or is he kind of just focused on the football field?
He sounds like he's more focused on the football field. I did ask him about Mora's future, and he told me, well, everyone in Westwood loves him, so I don't know where that stuff's coming from. But you look at the last two seasons, UCLA is a combined 12-13, and you're also losing to USC. And down in Westwood, you lose to USC, your job's pretty much like on the hot seat right there. But Taua sounds like a guy who's not really like diving into like what his future is. And he told me that Mora has a workman-like approach, though, that he still attacks each day with the same enthusiasm, the same attitude, and his players are feeding off of that. So it'll be interesting to see how he produces, how Mora produces. But I got a feeling that if things don't go well in the first 6-7 games, they might make it a coaching change right then.
And UCLA has an interesting schedule. I think they start with Texas A&M to start the year.
And it's a televised game.
Yeah, so you definitely check Ainuu playing on the UCLA defense when they host Texas A&M. I think USC is also hosting Texas this year, so a lot of
I'll be at that game.
Yeah, a lot of top Texas teams are coming to California to start the football season. So we can't wait for that and to see how Ainuu does, moving back to the defensive side of things. Another prominent local athlete is Dunn Lodi. He's was the #1 overall pick in the MLS Super Draft earlier this year. He played at Dunn School and then went on to UCLA. Chris Avery, who is now the athletic director at Santa Ynez, actually hosted Abu when he came to the United States from Ghana. And he's really starting to find his groove over there in Minnesota. That's where he's playing with the United. That's their first year in the MLS after moving from the Nassau. So Dunn Lodi, he started the last 2 games that Minnesota United has played. He has 3 goals on the season and 8 starts. He has a pair of assists. So it really seems like he's starting to find his groove competing at that level. MLS is a tough brand of soccer. It's our biggest level here in the United States. And it seems like he's definitely finding his groove there. If you are a soccer fan, you've probably been following it, especially being on the Central Coast with what he did here. He was a National Gatorade Player of the Year as a senior at Dunn. Went on, was a freshman of the year at UCLA, and then ended up being the top pick. And now he's really starting to produce at Minnesota United. So that's good to see that he's, being able to hang with that level of competition. I think he's kind of eyeing playing for the national team for Ghana once he gets up to that point. I could see that happening with him. He definitely seems like he has a lot of talent. He's a quick player, and he has been producing quite a bit, but mainly the reason he's been in the starting lineup the last couple of games has been to an injury to Christian Ramirez, who is the starting forward for Minnesota. He's been injured, so Abu's stepped in, filled in, and he's filled in nicely with a couple of goals recently, and he has an assist. He has an assist recently, so I think he's starting to produce. And they play at Seattle Sunday night. That's going to be on FS1. So if you're kind of interested to see how a local soccer star, probably the most prominent soccer star the area is seen in a probably of all time, even though he wasn't born and raised here on the Central Coast, he did live here. He saw some deep ties here to the Central Coast community, and he's kind of a blossoming star in football and soccer here in the United States, and he might venture off and play European soccer at some point, or move on to the national stage, maybe make a World Cup team or something like that. So Abu Danladi is really starting to produce over there for the Minnesota United, and they'll be on the West Coast this weekend. Moving on to one of our last stories for this week is Nancy Juarez. We covered her quite a bit while she was running at Santa Maria, but she wasn't one of those top line stars, household names that we have here on the Central Coast. But I think her story is one of the best of the last year. She's just been a quiet, hard-working athlete for the Santa Maria High track and cross-country teams over the last several years. And she's been working hard to go to college throughout the summer. She's been working in the strawberry fields, saving up money. She's also running 8 to 9 miles a day, getting ready to run at Stanislaus State at the Division II level. So I think that's a great story. She's been putting in the work, and it's definitely paying off. I think she's going to do well at Stanislaus. That's over there in Turlock. It's kind of similar to community to what we have here in Santa Maria and the Central Coast. So she's going over there. She's worked really hard to get to this point. It's a Division II school, so they don't offer, full ride scholarships. So she's had to work hard to earn some money to help her pay. She has some athletic scholarships that they're helping her out with. She was a 1600 meters champ her senior season. She holds 3 school records at Santa Maria in all the distance races: the 800 meters, the 1600, and the 3200 meters. So she's talented. She works hard, running 8 to 9 miles a day while working in the strawberry fields to save up money to go to CSU Stanislaus in Turlock. So I think that's a great story with what she's done, and it's going to be fun to see how she runs cross country and being on the track and field teams to see what her best race is at the college level, where it's a little bit different, but she's going to be doing both cross country and track over there. And it's great to see a Santa Maria High grad move on to big things, and I think she's going to do well out there. So congratulations to Nancy. It was a lot of fun covering her over the years. She was Athlete of the Week I think at least one time, and I think she's going to do well over there at Stanislaus State. That's all we got for this week. On Sunday, we will be publishing our season preview on Central Coast football. We got about a dozen teams featured in there, a bunch of photos, stories, and a lot of good info to get you ready for the season, which starts next Friday, August 25th. So that's coming out Sunday in the Santa Maria Times and the Lompoc Record, and then Thursday, August 24th, that is in the Santa Ynez Valley News. So that's our season preview special section. Have an eye out for that. And we will be back next week for another edition of 805 Sports Talk. And I think that one will be focusing more on the upcoming football season, which is, just a few days away.